talk about why that's basic. So yeah, so back to Basic Sunday being one of the most fundamental things we can do. And not only is it fundamental, it's also something we can do. So having a specific relationship with your breathing is a choice that you can make, and it's a thing that you can do, and it can be something that's within your control. And so that's a pretty cool thing, especially in a time where it seems like so much is out of our control. That having a relationship with our breathing is something that we can kind of take over and kind of take back. And I've said this a bunch of times. Really, is something that the kind of breathing that I talk about is something that we're very familiar with. We were kind of born doing it this way, and for whatever reason, cultural invitations and a variety of different things kind of moved away from this way of breathing into one that literally generates stress and tension. So, so not a great transition, probably not the best choice, probably not something that we really have done intentionally. And so there's another kind of thing right there where we can like intentionally kind of move back to a way of breathing that it's more kind of, it works better for us. I mean, it's kind of how babies breathe when they come out. It's how most animals breathe, mammals breathe. If you kind of watch them breathe, you'll see them not breathing up in here, but they're breathing down in here. You see a lot of abdominal movement in animals breathing and in babies breathing. And so it's really kind of a return to something that we've known how to do, that we knew how to do already, and that we're kind of taking up again. So with that said, here's your diaphragmatic breathing, and this is so here's your diaphragmatic release. That's not my hand moving. I don't move my hand, that's what happens. But if I just keep my hand on my stomach, so you can see that I can also do it without breathing. Breathing is not required to release the diaphragm. The diaphragm is this muscle right here, and it's horizontal. When we release it, it goes down, meaning that our guts have to come out. And so that's exactly what's happening. Interestingly, importantly, that there's a direct connection between that diaphragm muscle and our limbic system, this fight, flight, freeze zone that our brain is quite competently capable of doing because it's so useful and important in certain contexts. However, being in the fight flight place because you're concerned that you're going to get COVID is not useful. And it's actually an interesting example. Hate to bring up COVID, but everybody's thinking about it anyway. But the possibility that you might get COVID should not put you in a position where your fight flight system is operating, because it's not a known entity. The fight flight system links us back to a time when we were about to get eaten by a bear. And the cool thing about that, as much as it would be shitty to be eaten by a bear, I guess, you know when that's a possibility, and you know when it's over. Most importantly, you know when it's over. You know when the bear is either too tired to keep chasing you, you've run up the tree and it's not going to be able to get you, or it gets you. One of those possible outcomes, but it's a known entity. And when that happens, that's when the limbic system says, okay, either I don't need to be on anymore, or it doesn't make sense for me to be on anymore. Either way, I can turn off. And because of things like COVID, or your car insurance, or the mortgage, or paying your student loans, or whatever it happens to be, there is no end point. Because there's no end point, there's never a sort of a built-in shut-off for that experience. And so then we can get into these cycles. People talk about the hamster cage, even though it's really the hamster wheel. But it is this cagey-like thing that keeps us rolling and rolling and rolling and continuing spinning and spinning and going nowhere. So yeah, then back to the rules of the diaphragmatic breathing thing that I practice, and ultimately these aren't huge important rules. They're just the easiest ones I've come up with, and that's why I use them. Into the nose, out to the mouth. When you breathe in, you count. When you breathe out, you count. Just make sure it's the same number. It doesn't matter what the number is. Back is free. Diaphragm releases, and most important, you practice. And practice means that you're doing whatever you're doing before you actually have to do it in performance, so that you know how to do it and you're really good at it. I do it twice a day, every day, practicing. I practice twice a day, every day. First, last thing I do recommend, because it seems like if you do it right before going to sleep, then it can get connected to your sleep cycle. And that's not great, because then it becomes a thing that's about sleep instead of a thing that's about coming back to being centered and in the moment. Relaxed, not necessarily, and that's probably another thing I should throw out. This can certainly, it's absolutely been great for me in terms of relaxing. However, there are certain situations where if you expect that it's going to bring you into this calm, relaxed state, you're going to feel like you're doing it wrong because it's not going to happen. However, it's more important that you do it because it's not about being in a relaxed state. It's really being about in the moment that you're in. And there's some moments you could be in where being relaxed is not going to happen because, I don't know, your boss is yelling at you or something like that. But being in that moment and not what's going to happen, what could, should, or would have happened, just in that space, as much as it sucks, only that space is way better, at least in my experience. For me, it's way better for me to just be in the hard space instead of being in the hard space and the thinking about where this is going to go and the thinking about how I could have not been here and the thinking about all these things that actually aren't happening. Sometimes the space that you're in is bad enough just the way that it is. And so this breathing, what it does is it brings us just into the space that we're in instead of all the other possibilities. So yeah, but practice being very important so that when one of those situations comes up, you can be ready for it. People take up this practice. And one of the things that I do in my own personal experience is that sometimes in a situation where like I'm anticipating something's going to be difficult, I'll start breathing 15 minutes before it even happens. So I'm like fully in that place. I'm fully chilled out, and I just, I don't know, I prefer it. I have no idea what it would be like you, but for me, it's way better than the previous, before I started doing this work. It certainly is preferable to the alternative that I experienced. So yeah, so those are the basic rules. If you're interested in reading about these rules, I have written them down in a book I'm happy to send to you. All you have to do is send me a request. Either DM me on Facebook or YouTube, one of the things that you're actually watching right now, and I'll do my best to get back to you and send you over a copy, totally free. And it's free, so apparently people freak out about stuff that's free because it's like, I don't know, this whole thing about free. Anyway, the reason why it's free is because I don't really think about these ideas being necessarily mine or located in anybody. I think they're kind of ideas that are about being human. And so, at least at this point, I'm not really comfortable charging for it. But anyway, so that's available if you want to see the rules written down and a bunch of other stuff I talk about. And certainly get in touch with me around that. So that's Back to Basics Sunday. Hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll be back tomorrow.